Ailerons, elevator, trim, and rudder pedals. So in this session, we're going to talk about how we control the aircraft through the different control surfaces on board the aircraft or on the aircraft. So what we're going to do for this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and switch to the outside view. Normally, you would just press this button, this little hat switch to the left here, and that'll switch it to the outside view. What I'm going to do here is change our view. We'll go to external and we'll say circle. All right, so let's go to the tail of the aircraft so we can see what's going on here. So the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about roll. To roll the aircraft or bank the aircraft, we're going to use our control wheel that's in front of us here. And I'm just going to roll it to the left here. Notice that it doesn't take much pressure at all on it, and we're going into a bank there. Again, I'll do a right bank here, roll it to the right, and it's causing the aircraft to roll to the right there. So let's level it off. Now what you're not seeing, it's kind of hard to spot from here, but there's very little movement in the control surfaces. But let's pause the sim for a second here. So there are two surfaces right here, the ailerons. The one is right here, and there's an aileron right here. Those are moving ever so slightly every time I move my control wheel here. They're moving a little bit at a time, so they can actually see so you can actually turn the aircraft. You're not seeing it from the simulation, but they do move in the simulation itself. The other control surfaces that we have are the elevator, and that's right here. That's this whole surface right from here to here. And then we have a rudder, which is right here. It steers it just like it does in a boat or a ship. You've got a rudder there that causes it to move around. So let's take a look at that next. Let's go back here. I'm going to unpause the sim. And let's talk about the elevator. So watch, I'm going to pull up real aggressively so you can actually see the elevator. Watch what happens when I pull back on the control yoke. Let's do it from here. Watch that elevator now. I'm going to pull up real aggressively. Can you see how that moves up when I push the yoke in? So if I pull it back, it causes the nose to or the tail to drop and the nose uh, climb there. So if I pull back again, let's do it again, pull back, you can see how that's moving that control yoke. There's actually there's a cable that connects the yoke to that elevator surface that's moving there. So, okay, so that's the elevator. If I want to descend, again, do the same thing. I'm going to push real aggressively. Watch what happens to the elevator here. So I'm going to push the control yoke in, and you can see how it's causing the aircraft to pitch down. So the next control surface we want to talk about is the rudder. So let's go back here. It's kind of hard to see, but so there's our rudder right there. Now I'm going to look at my rudder pedals right here on the lower left or lower right hand side of the corner there. There's my feet. I've got the balls of my feet on the lower portion of the rudder pedals, not on the top up here. I've got them down here like this, and that's important. We'll get into that later on. So if I want to yaw the aircraft to the left, I'm going to push on my left rudder pedal, and notice my right rudder pedal moves back correspondingly. I'm not doing anything. I'm just pushing on my left rudder pedal. So now we're in forward slip here. So I'm going to go ahead and relax that, take that out, and we'll go ahead and get an aircraft flying straight here again. All right. So that controls the rudder, controls the yaw of the aircraft. It controls the rudder, which controls the yaw. So why do we have to have a rudder in the air? I mean, why can't I just do a turn like this? Well, if we go back into the cockpit, let's go in here. Okay, so you're going to notice your turn coordinator. There's a little tiny ball. This works just like a level that you use for construction or building something to make sure something's level. It's just a curved tube with a ball in the center of it. What it's telling us is the center of gravity right now is below the aircraft. Now watch what happens when I apply full left rudder. See how the ball swings to that side? That's saying our center of gravity now is over toward the right side of the aircraft. It feels really weird if you're flying like this. Your butt is kind of sliding to the right there. We don't like that. So we want to keep the ball centered at all times. So I'm going to apply a little bit of rudder. Look what I'm doing with my rudder pedals on the lower right-hand side of your screen there. So now when we go into a turn, why do we need rudders? When we go into a turn, we want to apply that to coordinate our turns. There's this thing called left or adverse yaw, which causes the aircraft to turn in the opposite direction when we bank it. And you'll get into that a little bit more in some of the later lessons there. So I'm in a right turn now, and let's see, I'll take my feet off the rudder pedals. And notice how the ball is kind of sinking a little bit to the right there. I want to counteract that. I want to step on the ball and get that ball to the center there. So now I'm applying very slight rudder pressure there to get it to maintain that ball in the center of the turn coordinator. That means we've got a good quality turn. So normally what you're going to do when you go into a turn, particularly right turns, you're going to see this a little bit more so in right turns than left turns, but in most aircraft that is. So again, let's go ahead and get that ball centered there. So I'm looking at that right there to center it. Again, I'm also, if you look in the lower right-hand corner down here, you're going to see my rudder pressure with my foot there. I'm applying just a little bit of rudder pressure there to keep the aircraft flying straight. Once the aircraft is set up, generally you don't have to use the rudders too much except when you're going into turn. You can see there we're a little bit, the center of gravity is now shifting over to the right, just a little bit of rudder pedal pressure there. So a mark of good pilots is keeping that ball centered, especially when you go into a turn. So if I go into a turn here, I want to just apply a little bit of rudder pedal, and then once you're in the turn, generally speaking, you don't really need as much rudder pressure. It's just when you first go into it there that you're going to apply a little bit of rudder pressure. Your examiner, when you go for your private pilot check ride, they're going to be looking for that to see how well you fly the aircraft. So you're going to want to have, good control of the rudder, not just the control yoke itself there. So, all right, so those are all critical controls. Again, yoke is going to control pitch, pull back, it climbs, push down, it descends. It also controls bank or roll. If I want to roll to the left or I want to roll to the right here, I'm going to apply rudder there. Okay. And then we've got our rudder pedals, which kind of cancels out the aircraft from it yawing too much from one side to the other. We want to keep that ball centered whenever we fly. It's a balancing act, and as with anything else, you just have to practice it, and eventually you'll get it down. But if you understand these concepts here, when you get into a real aircraft, it's going to be so much easier to learn how to fly. Now, another control that is often not talked about enough is the trim control. So you'll notice right now I want to keep my altitude at this, and to do that, if I want to keep my altitude where it's at, I have to hold my control yoke in. And that's on a long trip, that's going to take a lot of my effort to do it. If it's a 3-hour flight or a 2-hour flight, I don't want to have to hold my control yoke in. So what I do here, I can use my trim here and just trim the aircraft to fly without having to apply pressure on the control yoke. You may have to play with it a little bit, but notice that this is on the control yoke we're looking at right here. There's this little trim wheel, so that causes us or causes the aircraft to trim out the pressures on the control yoke, so we don't constantly have to apply pressure on the control yoke. Okay, those are the controls there. Now that you've got that, go ahead and start practicing the 4 fundamental flight maneuvers so you can get used to flying the aircraft and really fly it with precision. This is going to help you when you go to the airlines, you fly military aircraft or whatever. Having these basic fundamentals of flight are going to make it easier for you to get your pilot's license, your initial pilot's license, and then from there go on to get your commercial, your instrument, and all the other different licenses, ratings, things like that.